Welcome to Tech OLED City, and right behind me here we've got the two OLEDs that I use. These are the 55 inches, the B7 and also the CX as my main monitors. Now the first thing we're going to go over before we get into the tuning profiles and presets, one important thing about OLEDs is they do have a glossy surface. So the first thing you want to do is you want to have your environment set up so that there's no direct sunlight coming on the monitors themselves. This is going to give you the best experience, because if you've got light directly coming in from outside and it's hitting the OLEDs and bouncing off it, you're going to get reflections that'll be very annoying when you're gaming. Another thing is too, say for instance you're having a nice gaming session, definitely set your room up so you can block out light if it's bothering you, because I'm telling you now, these things are going to give you the best visual experience. And we just got finished doing the CX 77-inch there. He's the young guy here, he's telling me he wants an OLED.
I thought this was Tech OLED City.
I want an OLED too.
Well, I don't have enough money to get you one more.
I haven't got any money either, but what about a Monopoly kit?
So you're saying we'll get the Monopoly money and we'll go buy an OLED?
Why not?
Alright, well let's go get this video done for the viewers, and then we'll see if we can purchase an OLED with Monopoly money.
Let's try.
Welcome back to Tech Yes City, and on the left here we have a LG B7. These are a few years old now, and they only support 60 Hz over 4K 8-bit. This one here is the CX, and the good thing is if you've got a CX or even the B series, the B9 series for instance, B9, C9 or CX or BX, you're going to be able to get a lot out of these new OLEDs. And the difference is not just in the fact that they've got 10-bit 120 Hz 4K. Another thing is too is the input lag in particular. I found on the B7 here, there's only one mode that I can literally use for PC usage, and that's game mode. And even then, the game mode will have input lag over the CX. And if you turn off game mode, then the input lag is absolutely horrendous on the B7. So straight away, if you're on older OLEDs, you're pretty much locked to one mode, and that's game mode. But if your TV, for instance, the B9, has the instant game response, then you don't have to worry about which mode you use, because you can turn on instant game response and then you've got the really low input lag on any profile you use. So what we're going to go over today is 4 different profiles, and we're going to start for competitive gamers. So let's get into the first profile on the CX here. Now, if you're a competitive gamer, you're going to want to have a few things, and that is you're going to want to see in dark areas pretty easily. You're also going to want to be too distracted by colors. And the main thing about today's video is going to be mainly focused for B9, C9, CX, and BX users. So now we've got our OLED here, we've got our remote, and if you don't know how to use your remote, this is not going to be the video to show you how to do it, but we basically click our settings button and we want to go into all settings here. And on picture mode, there's a few things we're going to do before we get into the actual mode itself. We go left, we'll click here. I'm used to saying left click too much. We go into picture mode, we can see we've got a heap of different options here, 10 different profiles without HDR turned on. And then if we turn HDR on, I believe we've got 6 modes in that as well. They're actually separate. So vivid in HDR and standard in HDR will have their own profiles within that. So you'll have 2 standard and 2 vivid, for example, and 2 game modes, depending on if HDR is switched on or if it's switched off. But let's start off with the baselines. We're gonna go to game now first, because this is the one we're gonna set up for competitive FPS. But we're also gonna go back to this main screen here, and we're gonna just make sure we go back again and just check out some of these main settings. First things first, aspect ratio settings. Make sure just scan is turned on if you're on a PC or a new gen console. That's gonna make sure our screen is as big as it should be without essentially making the screen bigger and your icons are off the screen and you can't see them. That's the one for that. Then we go to energy savings. I like to leave this on auto personally because I find the CX series and also the B9, C9, they do an excellent job of having good energy savings off the get-go. If you turn this off, if you turn actual energy saving off, you may over time be susceptible to burn-in a lot quicker than if you left this on auto, and if something's static, like we got a static image here, the screen will start saving power. So I like to leave energy savings on auto, and within all our profiles that we're showing here today, which we're gonna have 6 profiles in total based off of technically 4 profiles, but again, 2 of them duplicate into HDR. We're going to leave this on auto, and that's gonna flick through all our different profiles here today. So that's gonna be a staple that goes through. Another thing is too, additional settings. We want to make sure that HDMI deep color is turned on. So we see here, it's actually turned on by default here, but you just go into this tab and make sure that is turned on. Instant game response, this should be turned on by default as well. You do want to make sure this is turned on too. You also want to make sure you got an HDMI 2.1 cable to get the most out of these OLEDs, as well as an RTX 3000 card, RX 6000 series graphics card, or of course the new gen consoles. Now, AMD Free-Sync Premium. This one here, I turn this off because I'm on an NVIDIA RTX 3000 series card. If you're on an RX 6000 series card, I'd definitely turn this on. That'll allow you to turn on FreeSync in the graphics card options, but because we got G-Sync enabled and because this is a G-Sync compatible TV, we can then go into our Windows settings and enable G-Sync on both full screen and windowed mode. So they're the settings before we even get into it. Those 3 settings there, I like to make sure they're correctly set up before we move into the actual fine tuning of the picture mode settings itself. But once we've done all that, let's go into game mode, and we're gonna start setting this up for competitive FPS. So that means we can see the shadows easily, and we go into contrast here, and I'm gonna set that to 90. And now we're going down to brightness here, and I like to leave this on 50, and I like to leave this on 50 on pretty much every profile that we're touching here today. Reason being is because if you've got, like, say for instance, you got a JPEG image, you drop this down to 0, you drop this up to 100, you're heavily distorting the image. 50 is gonna leave the image alone in terms of distortion. So this is not really an OLED setting in terms of hardware, it's more of a software change that's going to, in my opinion, degrade the picture. So I like to leave this on 50, it's the default, it's the middle ground, it's essentially not doing anything at this setting, which is what we want it to do. Just like sharpness here, where I'm gonna grab this and then drag it all the way to 0. And now if we drag it all the way to 50, we can see that it just brings out all the noise and it essentially sharpens the image. In this case, it's over sharpening the image. Now, what a sharpening filter does, if you guys edited videos before, you edited a photo, a sharpening filter will make a blurry object more easier to read, whether it's text or an object or a human face. In this case, since we're the user and we're using the TV, we would hope that the content that we're playing, in the case of games or movies, is already perfectly in focus to begin with, or very much in focus. Now, in the past, I have made videos where a few of the clips have been out of focus. You guys have definitely pointed me up in the comments. And so if you saw that picture in that video, you could then quickly just blast this to 50 and it'd be easier to see. But for most other, well, pretty much all content out there, you want to leave this to 0 for what it's worth. And this is going to be a setting that I'm going to be doing for pretty much every profile that we touch here. These 2 are pretty much going to be the same across all the 6 different profiles that we're going through today. Now onto color. This one is your saturation, and I find the LG, depending on how much you want your color to pop, this one is going to be a gold mine of a setting, where I'm going to put this for this competitive profile here to 65, and then we're going to go down and tint. This is another one too. I would leave tint alone because just like brightness, it's really distorting the image, whether you go left or right. Then let's go over now to advanced controls, where here we're going to have a few different settings to play around with. One of these is dynamic contrast, and I like to push this on low because it brings out the shadows a little bit more. And then I like to go to super resolution, turn this to off because we're not upscaling anything. I mean, if you wanted to upscale, you can also use DLSS if you're on an NVIDIA card. AMD have their own upscaling technology as well, the Fidelity FX stuff. So we're going to leave this on low for dynamic contrast. Super resolution, we're going to turn that off. Color gamut, we are going to put this to wide. Now you may be wondering, but I've been told to leave this on auto. And that's true. You should, if you need color accuracy, you should leave this on auto and let the TV, or let the software tell the TV what color gamut to use. But I like my colors. One thing about me at Tech City is if I'm using this, whether it's playing games competitively or for a user experience, I love color. I'm a man that loves his saturation. So I want to put this on wide and let LG give me a little bit more richness in my image. So we're going to let that set to wide, and then we're going to go to gamma. Very important for competitive gaming. This one is the most important setting here for getting those details out. Now we drop this to 1.9, the gamut 1.9. We can see here, it's pretty much brightened up everything. Highlights and also shadows have been brightened up. And now all the other settings will pretty much make it a darker sort of look. And when we're competitively gaming, we want to see everything. So putting this to 1.9 is a really good idea. Now for white balance, we're going to go to color temperature. Now I'm going to do something a little bit controversial. I'm going to put this to cool. And the reason being is I think it works well with the next 2 points that we're going to do. And that is, we're not going to touch these other settings here. This starts to get into a more advanced picture where it's good. If you know what you're doing, you can change the greens and blues and reds at 2 different methods, or you can go to 10-point IRE or 22-point and play around with that. But I like to do something different with the reds and the greens. And I like to go to the color management system. And then I like to, focusing here on red, I like to then go to saturation and give that a little bit more saturation. So our reds and our greens, our human eyes love reds and greens. We see detail through it. We're going to give them a little bit more saturation as well as a little bit more pop. We're going to drop that to 10 luminance and give red extra 5 saturation. Now with green, we're going to go down to green here and do the same thing. We're going to give that a boost of 5 and we're going to give that a luminance of 10. And that's just going to give us that little edge when we're competitively gaming. And so that's the first profile done now for our game mode user on 8-bit in Windows 10. And this is going to work for pretty much all those competitive titles out there: CSGO, Apex Legends, Call of Duty. This is going to be a really good one for you. Now the next one we're going to do is my personal favorite, period. This is the one I use the most when I'm gaming, and this is based off the baseline of the HDR effect. This one's super easy to do, but you may be wondering at first, like, okay, what's happened here? I don't really like this picture. But we're gonna make it so you really are loving this picture. This one is just when you wanna get immersed in games, and since a lot of titles out there don't fully support HDR, and this is the thing, HDR hasn't really been properly, like, it's getting implemented, it's getting a lot more support as time goes by, but it hasn't been, a lot of content still, I guess, is 8-bit, and it's designed for 8-bit. So this one here is gonna be the 8-bit buster, and it's gonna be some of the most eye-watering picture you can get out of this thing. So let's start off with contrast. We're gonna leave that at 100. Brightness, leave that at 50. Sharpness, we're gonna drop that all the way down to 0. Then we're gonna go through here, color. We're gonna increase this now to 80. This is going up. And this is really, you can see here, the colors are gonna start really popping out. But we're also gonna do something else with the color. Temperature, it's pretty much set all the way to warm, all the way down. So we're going to drop this back now to C2, and that's going to give us an absolutely gorgeous look. But we're also still going to go through some of the advanced controls here, because dynamic color, we want to have that on high. Then we want to go to our color gamut, and it's already set to wide, so that's a bonus there that we've got. But super resolution, we can turn that to off. And the final one is to go now back to the main menu here in the user profile and go down to picture options and then go to black level, and we're going to put that on high. So make sure that's set to high, then go back, and this profile is going to be an absolute winner. It's what I play Dota 2 with, and I play Dota 2 like kind of competitively in turbo mode, and I just absolutely love playing Dota 2 with this picture profile. The greens, the reds, all the colors just pop so hard. And now moving through the 8-bit profiles here, this is gonna be the last one for video editors. And then this is gonna segue, or should I say way of the seg, into the HDR profiles, where we're gonna sort of push this one. It's gonna be a little bit different in HDR mode, because you actually lose some picture profiles when you switch it over to 10-bit. But here it is right here. This one's super easy if you wanna get pretty much accurate colors out of the box with changing very little. So what we're gonna do is go to this ISF Expert, and it's called Bright Room. And then we're gonna change this a little bit. This one's actually pretty accurate out of the box, but we can make it even more accurate. And I've actually calibrated this on the display beforehand just to test that this works as best as possible. So drop the contrast to 80 here, and then move along, leave the brightness, drop the sharpness down all the way again to 0. We don't need that on. And then we're going to go into advanced controls, And we're going to make sure the color gamut is on auto. So whatever software we're working with, it's going to automatically make the colors as they should be. So our previous two profiles, we were like, yeah, we love a bit of extra saturation. We want LG to give me, or make my eyes water. This is different. We're getting, probably a lot of people who use this profile are getting paid for work. They need things to be accurate, and then they can go from there. Gamma, leave this on 2.2, does a good job. White balance, this is another important point. This is the last setting you need to change in this profile. Just go to color temperature and then put it on warm 1. And that's pretty much as color accurate as you can get, at least according to my tests here, for a profile without doing very little. It's only minuscule, and I'll show you guys before and after quickly on how minuscule the difference is once you do this between having it perfectly calibrated versus not. So now we're going over to the HDR profile. So far we've got a competitive gaming profile, we've got a color beautiful saturated tech yes profile, and we've got a color editing profile. A lot of people would just stop here, but a big benefit of the OLEDs, especially these new ones, is that they can turn on HDR. And that now gives them access to 10-bit RGB colors. Which, if the software, and this is what I'm gonna say, this profile, even me, I don't use this a lot of the time because a lot of programs don't take advantage of it yet. Even though they might say HDR, they actually don't take advantage of it. And so when we do this, we're also going to be, the TV itself starts reacting, and it's got different profiles now. So we'll see that we've lost actually quite a few profiles here, whereas opposed to before we had a heap more. So we now only got Vivid, Standard, and Filmmaker Pro, and Game, Cinema, and Cinema Home. For me now, I'm gonna focus on 2 of these profiles, well actually 3 of these profiles. First of all, we're gonna go with Standard because we're gonna go off the back of editing videos, and if we've got a 10-bit picture or whatever we need to work with, we can then edit this and make it proper. So contrast, we're gonna change this in Standard. We're gonna change this to 80 again, magic number. We're then gonna go to Sharpness, get rid of this completely. We're then gonna go down all the way to color, and again, set that to 50, and that's gonna drop just that artificial, because we're editing videos in this mode at 10-bit. We don't need any of that stuff. Now color temperature, simple. We just grab this, and we drop it down to W7 in this mode here. And that's what I've found to be pretty much similar as before. But there is still a few little things we need to do. Dynamic contrast. I'm gonna turn that off. And then we're gonna leave dynamic tone mapping on. Dynamic color, we're gonna turn that off as well. And then we're gonna go to color gamut, and we're gonna leave that on auto as well. Just like our standard profile, we want to be having what the colors were intended if we're video editing. Now super resolution, I like to turn this off. And there we go. We've got now ourselves a 10-bit photo and video editing profile for those video editors out there. It's going to be relatively accurate. It's going to be pretty accurate, just like our previous ISF profile was accurate. So next one is a simple one for HDR users, people who want a clean HDR experience but don't want to change many settings at all. Contrast, we can leave this at 100 because we were going to want in HDR mode to really pop everything and make it pop as hard as possible. Sharpness, we can go drop this down to 0. We don't need that sharpening, just like we did on all the other profiles. Color, let's give this a little bit of a boost to 65. Then, all we have to do outside of that is one more setting. And that is dropping this here, the dynamic contrast, to high. And I find this is going to give you a really nice experience when it comes to getting low input lag, great HDR experience, and also getting a really good picture. Now, if you want to even go just even a little bit stupider, you can change it to wide, but I find the auto setting here already really stretches it out on HDR. So I just like to leave that on auto anyway. And this is just a simple one for those who want a great gaming experience on HDR. And now we're at the grand finale, where this one's gonna work off the Vivid profile. So we've already set up our video editing profile on HDR, we've got our game profile on HDR. Now it's time to get our sort of like, this one's a little bit eye-watering, but at the same time, I really like the blacks to be extremely dark a lot of the times. So I'm gonna go to vivid straight away. This is our base profile. Contrast, we're gonna leave that at 100. Sharpness, we're gonna turn that all the way off again. And then we're gonna go down to color, give this a nice boost to 75. And then we're gonna go, oh, hey, get back to 75. The TV can't keep up with me. And we're gonna go to color temperature here and just drop this down to C2. Now there's one more important setting here, and that is the black levels. So this will be in picture options, and we just go here to black level and we go to low. And you see here that's really making the shadows a lot darker as opposed to auto or high. So this really makes that sort of, like if you're, say for instance, you're playing Metro Exodus or something where there's a lot of dark scenes and dark areas and you want to get immersed in that feeling, this profile is going to provide that. It's going to give that real, in my opinion, sort of like immersive HDR experience. And that's pretty much it for the Tech Yes profiles, guys. I'll put all the settings in the description below for you, so it's easier for you just to follow on text. But let's move over now to a quick conclusion. And after all those profiles are set in, you may be wondering, well, Brian, what do you use for movie watching? And that's where I use the HDR effect. And also, as we set up that vivid profile in HDR mode itself, I use those two profiles, not just for immersive gaming, oversaturated, but I love watching movies in those two profiles as well. So hopefully this guide has helped you guys in setting up the OLED and giving it a better experience. Now, one thing I will say is the beauty about these monitors is there's so many settings you can change, and if you like a particular setting, don't be afraid to go with it. These are just settings that I use, and I've been absolutely loving OLED. And the reason why I'm making these videos, and they may be a little bit from the norm here at Tech Yes City, is because OLED's finally that tech that I've been waiting for. Like, it's over 6 years ago, I made videos about blue light and how bad a lot of these blue LEDs that are going into monitors is not, or how bad that tech is for your eyes. And it's finally years later where we've got this high refresh rate tech now with a technology that's not that expensive, really, when you look at OLED compared to definitely other technologies like full RGB LEDs in the back of monitors. This stuff is actually coming in with very good value for what it is. 4K 120 Hertz, 10-bit, and it's got that beautiful pixel backlighting that just gives you an absolutely gorgeous picture, and it's good for your eyes. And I can't stress that enough. If you're using these computers for hours and hours on end every day, you definitely want to be treating your eyes to, I guess, a better image quality than you'd get out of a older LED technology, blue LED technology. So that's why I'm really excited about these, and I'm happy to share my settings. And hopefully I'd like to see OLED come down in price as well. And definitely when we can see some maybe 22-inch or 24-inch budget monitors, that would be really cool to see out there in the market. So hopefully some companies can get on that, and even bringing OLED to competitive gamers on 24-inch setups with even higher refresh rates, or just regular, I guess, sitting on the desk in a small desk gamers as well. That'd be really cool, because you may notice here with the OLEDs, I've set them up and they're pushed way back from my desk. That's because if I had them any closer, I couldn't function with a big monitor like that too close to me. So I'll put the link in the description below for the OLEDs, and also for the stands that I'm using to attach to those OLEDs. They're about 100 Aussie dollars each for the stands, and I've got 2 of them, and I love having these pushed back to sort of make the size a little bit, or the perceived size, a little bit smaller than having it close up. Anyway guys, if you enjoyed today's video, then be sure to hit that like button for us. Also let us know in the comments section below, do you have any tips or tricks of your own in regards to OLED, or is there anything you wish to know about this beautiful panel technology? And I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And with that aside, I'll catch you in another tech video very soon. Peace out for now. Bye.